Hi, Andy XL back with another NFXL podcast in the build up to the 2026 NFL draft. Continuing my focus on that as I really do hone in on what's going to happen in the come the end of April. So in this one, I'm going to give you an early April update on the offensive linemen. So this is going to be a quick look at the rankings of the offensive linemen. We just under 3 weeks now to go until draft day, about 20 days. I'm just totting up, yeah, 20 days. So let's have a look at the centres to start with. Now, if we're looking at the centres, before I get into the rankings, let's have a look at who might be looking for centres in this draft. So I've got Baltimore, Green Bay, Minnesota, and the New York Giants as the most needy teams in terms of looking for a centre in this draft, which could mean 4 go before the end of day 2. But in this draft, there's seemingly no candidate worthy of round 1 selection, so they could all be in round 2 and 3. After those 4 teams have got their man, demand pretty much dries up, so the rest of this class could fall into the later rounds. But let's have a look at the top 8 that I've only got 8 in my top 250. And so supply is low, demand is low. But here they are. Here's the top 8. Logan Jones of Iowa is at 83 on my big board. Connor Liu of Auburn is at 84. Sam Hecht of Kansas State at 93. Jake Slaughter of Florida at 103. Now, they're the 4 that I think are most likely to compete for those spots with those 4 teams I've named: Baltimore, Green Bay, Minnesota, and the Giants. After those 4, possibly getting into round 3, Slaughter might drop into, 1 or 2 of them might drop into the beginning of round 4. But we've got 4 more. Parker Brailsford of Alabama at 142. Jaeger Burton of Kentucky at 163. Matt Gulbin of Michigan State at 170. And Pat Coogan of Indiana at 193. Now, I'm suspecting all 4 of those could possibly slide due to the lack of demand. So that's how I see the centre position at the moment. Let's move on to guards. Which teams need a guard? Baltimore, Buffalo, Denver, Green Bay, the New York Giants, Pittsburgh, San Francisco, and Tennessee are 8 teams that I have as possibilities to take a guard early in this draft. So 8 teams looking, but I only have 5 or 6 candidates who have a chance of being day 1 or day 2 picks on their talent, that is. So that may mean those half a dozen go pretty early, leaving the other 5 teams who might look for a guard in this draft on top of the 8, also potentially having to go early to get their man, as demand clearly outstrips supply here. Right, who are the top 12 tackles? Guards. I've got 12 in my top 250, and I'll just list them off for you. Spencer Fano of Utah at 11. I've moved to guard from tackle because it seems that sort of teams are looking at him as potentially now. Oliver Vega Ione of Penn State at 14, Chase Bizontis of Texas A&M at 42, Emmanuel Pregnon of Oregon at 51, Caleb Rutledge of Georgia Tech at 87, and Billy Schroth of Notre Dame at 116. Now, I think also, those between 3 and 6 could essentially go earlier than I'm predicting there by their big board rankings due to the level of demand for early on. Then we've got Bo Stevens of Iowa at 175, DJ Campbell of Texas at 176, Ahmad Reed Adams of Texas A&M at 180, Jaden Roberts out of Alabama at 191, Jeremiah Wright out of Auburn at 209, and Mika Morris of Georgia at 224. So they're a dozen guards that I'm seeing as getting draft worthy at the moment. But as I say, with demand being quite high, they could all do all right in this draft. Right, on to offensive tackles. Big number I've got 26 in my top 250. And the teams I think are probably most looking to take a tackle early on are Arizona, Detroit, Houston, Kansas City, Las Vegas, and Tennessee. They're the 6 teams I see as looking to get an offensive tackle early in this draft, with another 7 in the second wave, they being Chicago, Cincinnati, Dallas, the LA Rams, New England, New Orleans, and Pittsburgh. So about 10 offensive tackles could go on the first 2 days, with another 3 or 4 in round 4. Supply looks stronger than demand at offensive tackle, which could result in those outside of the first 6 or 7 sliding from their big ball positions before the draft occurs. And these are my top 26, as I say, offensive tackles. Francis Maragoa of Miami is 6 on my big board. Georgia's Monroe Freeling is at 16. Caden Proctor out of Alabama at 21. And the Utah Ute Caleb Lomu at 24. Blake Miller of Clemson at 28 makes 5 in the first round, possibly. Into round 2, Max Hianacha of Arizona State at 36. And Jennings Dunker of Iowa at 61, top and tail round 2. Into round 3, Caleb Tiernan of Northwestern at 67, Austin Barber of Florida at 75 are the only 2 I have in round 3. So those 9 I think will do okay in terms of getting taken at their big ball position or earlier. Then we get a bit of a drop off, and these following are going to be scrapping for the remaining positions. Trey Zoon of Oklahoma is at 101 on my big board. Jalen Farmer of Kentucky at 110. Brian Parker of Duke at 119. Cage Casey out of Boise State at 124. Miami Hurricane Markel Bell at 128. Drew Shelton of Penn State at 133. Demetrius Crownover of Texas A&M at 135. And Jude Bowery of Boston College at 138. That makes it 8 guys potentially in round 4. But whether they'd all go in round 4, I doubt it. There's some of those are going to slide. Into round 5, potentially, Isaiah Wild of Oregon at 143, J.C. Davis of Illinois at 154, Armil Wagner of Notre Dame at 174, and Keegan Trost of Missouri at 178. Then into the final 2 rounds, and these guys might now be potentially sliding into potential undrafted material. Alex Harkey of Oregon at 202, Diego Pounds of Ole Miss at 218, Fernando Carmona of Arkansas at 223, Fat Alili Fatamo of Wake Forest at 233, and Carver Wallace of Washington at 244. So they round out my offensive line prospects so far. And right now, and where I think that supply and demand might take them, or what teams are looking at. So I'll come back with some of the piece for the defensive lineman next. See you soon.